at that point now have commercial production experience, imaging experience, mixing experience. I mean, you really have all aspects of production.
Perfect timing for me to stop practicing law. because by then you realize, oh my God, this is one of the most unstable industries I could have possibly been attached to. I gotta get out.
Benztown president Dave Chachi Dennis loves radio and all of his radio friends.
Hey, Chachi.
Hey, everybody.
Because Chachi loves everybody.
I'm really excited to welcome someone today who is not only, I think, just an incredible person and someone who gives so much to our industry, but also someone who's become just a dear friend of mine over the last few years. I'd like to welcome Yaman Coskun, the founder and CEO of Yaman Creative, based in Washington, D.C. Yaman is an advertising specialist. He's got over 35 years of creative success stories, and he's worked for legendary stations like Philly's Power 99 FM, Q102, DC's Hot 99.5, and Big 100. Today, his creative tools, Cash by Creative and SpecByte, are used in over 530 markets. And before I let him speak, I was golfing, and Yaman and I both share golf in common, both have a passion for it and love it. And an analogy I'd like to share, I feel like I'm a pretty decent creative mind, and I like to brand and talk about promotions and marketing and so forth. And when I think I've said or come up with something really bright, I will then go and listen to Yaman, and I realize to myself, it's like, oh my God, he's just at a completely different level when it comes to creativity. And the golf analogy is like when you hit a really good drive, and a guy like Yaman and myself, if we really connect and there's a downwind and the hole is downhill, maybe we can get it down 230, 240 yards. And then a pro comes along and crushes it 350, 375. That's how I feel Yaman is. I can hit the ball 225, 230, and Yaman, when it comes to creativity, just crushes it. 400 yards. You really are just amongst the most creative people I know, and just an inspiration. So, Yaman, welcome, and thank you so much for coming to the show.
I am sweating in embarrassment right now. I am so thankful, so grateful for your kind comments. I think people who specialize in certain fields, whether it's, creative, or you're a pianist, or you are an athlete, the ones who are really good at it never really focus on how good they are at it. Actually, they often focus on how much more room they have to grow. So when I hear a trusted friend like you introduce me the way you do, I honestly, genuinely am embarrassed, but also I immediately think of all the people that I have grown up, admiring. So in our field, when I look at the creative legends from, Dick Orkin to, Roy Williams and, all these brilliant minds who understand not just, if you want to stick with the golf analogy, not just understand the swing and where the ball goes, but all the technicalities behind it, all the mechanics behind it. There's a science to what they do. So, like when it comes to reading Roy Williams articles, I have to read them 2-3 times just to digest and process and understand, because they're brilliant. But, I guess that's my long-winded way of saying thank you for an amazing introduction. I'm only as good as those who have similar passions or as engaged in what we do for a living. And you're one of those guys. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I mean it wholeheartedly. The way that you come up with ideas and the way that you're able to articulate those ideas, it really it blows my mind. I mean, you are a modern day Don Draper. I could, and we'll get into this more, but I could really see you working or running an advertising agency off of Madison Avenue, and the creativity that just comes out of your mind. Was that something you were drawn to early on as a child?
Hang on a second. I just had a rush of blood to my ego. Okay. All right. I need to lie down for a second. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to give you exactly 4 hours to stop talking like that. Honestly, I mean, not to get too deep in the weeds here, but as a kid, from like age 4 or 5 all the way till about 11, 12, I wanted to be a doctor.
Really?
Yes, I walked around with a little briefcase full of paraphernalia that resembled tools that a medical person would have.
That is so cute. I never knew this.
And I used to go to mom, dad, and family members and relatives and guests and, listen to their chest, ask them to cough. But that's as far as I went. So. And then somehow from 13 on, 14, 15, we used to live in the suburbs of Philadelphia called Upper Darby, and right up the street was a volunteer fire department. And if anybody's familiar with how volunteer fire departments operate in most traditional American towns, when they get a call, there is a siren that goes off on top of the roof. And I think to this day, they still exist. It's like a nuclear war alert,
Right.
Take shelter, but it's not. And every time I heard that, I would immediately put on my pretend fire coat and helmet and run outside, rain or shine.
That's adorable.
With a garden hose and just respond to that sound. Ironically, while that ambition changed, fast forward to 2020, my wish came true. I am a fireman. Because when you're working with 500 plus radio stations, helping them develop revenue, I am out there with my garden hose just about every day.
So you grew up in Turkey, outside of Istanbul, or in Istanbul?
In Istanbul, yep.
And you were a child actor, correct?
Oh boy, this is going to be one of those, huh? Okay.
It is, and I know a bit about this, obviously, because of our friendship, but Yaman was a very prominent actor as a child in Turkey before moving here to the States.
Yeah, I don't know about the prominent part, but I think maybe we should go back to the beginning of this podcast and add a Mission Impossible disclaimer that this podcast will self-destruct in 30 seconds now that we're getting into some serious intel about my past. Yes, my dad was, you ready for this? This is the weirdest part. He was the publisher in the 50s and early 60s of a very popular magazine in Turkey called Radio. Go figure.
It was called Radio.
Right. It was called Radio. That was the name of the magazine. And it was an entertainment magazine, but, primary source of entertainment, especially in the 50s, was radio in Turkey. TV came in mid to late 60s with one channel, black and white, until about mid 70s.
So this is like an Entertainment Weekly type magazine.
Correct. Exactly.
Got it.
And so, they were connected in the entertainment industry and know the producers and directors. How it is. Oh, your child is so cute. We should put him in a movie. Not realizing how that would, turn me into a psychologically disturbed adult someday. But nevertheless, they went through with it. So I was in a bunch of movies from age 7 till about, 16 or so.
Was that something you enjoyed doing, right?
Well, at the time, sure. I mean, as a kid, you're like, oh my God, it's so much fun. It's colorful, exciting, and you get all the attention and fun. And, only years later, I wondered, wait a minute, I don't ever remember seeing a paycheck. Who took care of that? Yeah. But never questioned it at that time. But I think, if you want to talk about the past, I think what is really relevant to what we're doing today and what we're discussing is, with all due respect to my attempted acting career, is the fact that I used to take a pair of walkie-talkies, Radio Shack walkie-talkies, and rubber tape one of them so the button would stay pushed in, right? Put that next to my turntables in my bedroom, and then put the other one in my parents' bedroom. And before they went to bed, I used to broadcast music to them talk, pretending to be a DJ.
So you did it. You gave them a show.
Clearly, which were the first indications of, again, some kind of a psychological disturbance that would ultimately provoke me to make a career out of radio.
Now, your dad being in the entertainment business and being a magazine publisher, and I'm assuming they were pretty supportive of the arts and creativity as a whole?
Oh, absolutely, 100%, until we immigrated to the United States, which ironically June 1st was the 40th anniversary. It was June 1st, 1980, when my parents and I settled in Philly. Yes, they were 100% supportive until right about early 1982, I started spending all kinds of crazy hours at this local radio station in Philly called Power 99 FM.
Sure.
And I would do, edits and trying to remix songs and help with production for no money. There was no support then, my friend. Zero. There was a lot of yelling and a lot of, you're a loser, you need to make something out of yourself. What are you doing? You've spent 30, 40 hours at this damn radio station last week. What are you going to do with your life? There was a lot of that. But, when I was appointed to be the co-executive whatever of CSG, the Creative Services Group at iHeart back in 2004, I remember having the temptation to want to say to my parents, How about it? How about them?
Finally get that validation.
Right.
So when you moved here from Turkey, how old are you at the time?
I was 19.
You were 19. Did you speak any English?
Very basic. It's kind of part of the curriculum in Turkey as you grow up. You're taught the basic grammar, but no, not fluent.
Was this something that you were pro? Were you excited to come here to the States, or did you have a lot of anxiety over it?
There was a lot of mixed emotions. It's very much like I don't know, but nothing compares to it. It was mixed. It was 50% anxiety, 50%. Oh wow, can't wait.
What's your first job at? And let me go back to Turkey really quickly. Were you ever into radio while you were there? Was that something that caught your attention? Still back in Istanbul?
No, but part of my acting career included what at the time was called dub overs.
Okay.
Because all Western movies were dubbed over.
Oh, sure.
And there was an industry of voice talent who did nothing but voices.
Okay.
A little better than the martial art movies that you see where everything's out of sync. This was actually done pretty convincingly. Characters were matched nicely and so instead of subtitles, it was dub over. So that was that's as close as I got to.
So we're actually watching a couple shows now on Netflix, and being from the States, you don't get a lot of exposure to dub overs, but now there's some big international shows that are dubbed over here in English. Right. So I don't know if you've seen Fada, which is done in Israel, and then there's another show called Money Heist, which I think is out of Mexico. And so I'm very now familiar with dub overs. So
and that's
you actually, it really is. But what's funny is you notice it for like the first episode, and it's like really kind of apparent. But then once you get into it, it just kind of goes away. You don't even think about it any longer.
There was definitely some fascination. I only came to recognize that when I started looking at photo albums from my childhood, and my goodness gracious, 1 out of every 10 picture, I'm how most normal people have their pictures taken at a vacation, by a cool car with friends.
Sure.
Not me. All my pictures are in front of a turntable. It's next to a cassette deck.
So
it's headphones on.
Right. That's. I remember we had conversation about this, and your parents like to entertain quite a bit, correct? And you guys would have parties, and so you kind of grew up with a lot of people in the arts and actors and so forth. Right. And remind me, what did your mother do?
She was a retired school teacher.
Okay.
So she, once they got married, she wasn't working,
and
her career was being a socialite,
which is a good career, and then also supportive of you. I'm sure driving you around and getting.
Oh yeah. She was. That's a good point. Actually, she was my agent. Yeah. Really, she was definitely the stage manager.
And Yaman downplays it, but he went back to Turkey a couple years ago with his family, and you were checking into a hotel, and I believe that someone recognized you at the hotel and was very shy, but came over and asked for your autograph.
Well, the weird part is until the internet came around, I did not know what had happened because I had not gone back. We had no relatives, we had no friends. So once we moved on, right? So that was 1980. Well, so it's the mid to late 90s. Suddenly I'm seeing these, things online about one of the, like there were about a dozen movies I was in, but one of those movies became a cult movie. And it was a kind of a low budget, no one would ever guess. It was sort of Star Trek-ish, in the 60s, getting canceled, and oh my God,
Right.
It's not going to go anywhere. And then, a decade later, it becomes a global culture. This movie apparently became so huge that it superseded the borders of Turkey. It was being rerun on channels throughout the Europe markets.
wild.
And I'm like, what the heck? So because of that one particular movie, and I was, a supporting actor in it, it just every cast member who were still living, became a common topic, like news fillers. You'll always get, Yaman Coskun, where is he now? Oh, well, he's an executive in radio business in the United States. Oh my, really?
That's wild.
Slow news day.
That is wild. It's
Yeah,
too
it is
bad.
wild.
I'm sure you could be do the Comic-Con circuit back in Turkey.
Oh man, I hope not.
So you moved to the States. Why did your parents choose Philadelphia?
I'm not sure to this day. I wish to God they had chosen San Francisco or San Diego or Florida. Please, anywhere where there's just, sunshine most of the year. But I'm being facetious, but Philly really became home. And, since 2001, as you know, we're in D.C., but when my family and I are driving to Philly to visit my wife's family, we still, all these years later, we still say we're going home.
No kidding.
For some reason, we've never used that line when we're driving back to D.C. So driving 95 south, no one really talks. But driving 95 north, we go up, we're going home. So that's Philly does that to you,
So that's you. That's where you identify your home being as Philly.
Yeah, it's Philly's home, and there's nothing wrong with D.C. Yeah. It's an incredible area, but compared to cities like Philly, St. Louis, Chicago, you want to go where everybody knows your name.
Sure.
I know where I got that line from, but that's how it is in those cities.
I know your dad was a really hard worker, instilled a big work ethic. So you get to Philly, and pretty much right when you get there, you start working. And was it a department store? Am I correct? Am I remembering this properly?
Yes.
What did you do at the department store?
Well, I was the only male salesperson working at Macy's Evan Picone department, which really, for those of us who may not be familiar with that brand, it's a very conservative business suit, yuppie kind of a
like a Perry Ellis or
kind of, or I remember the Charter Club, I think it was called, always monogrammed sweaters.
Yeah, got it, okay.
That kind of thing.
Members only.
Right. So it was I don't think my wife will be listening to this podcast. She's very busy taking care of things, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It was an extremely lucrative first job, and the money was good too. Hey, waiter, check please.
You've got Yaman's a very attractive man. You're exotic. You come from a foreign country. You've got an accent, and I'm sure in Philadelphia that was something that was pretty exotic.
I'm beginning to think that there might be some kind of a bromance developing between us that may be way ahead of what I think. And I think the audience will think that too.
Maybe Elizabeth should be concerned about that.
I think everyone at this point who know both of us should be concerned, including your wife.
So you're working at the department store, and at the same time, you start doing mixes for the local station, right?
Right. Yeah. So apparently nobody had a concept of what sounds cheesy and what doesn't. So they decided to brand these remix shows that I was doing for Power 99 FM as Yaman Super Mixes.
Yaman Super
Now, we
Mixes.
just talked about Philly, right? And how, there's a sense of neighborhoods and people know each other and there's loyalty. And, you know this all too well. There are also a number of markets throughout the country that have an incredible, loyal radio listener base. And I think when it comes to urban format, that really manifests itself even with more power. You know, if you have an urban radio station in a market, small, medium, or large, that's on the money, that's delivering the music, the format, the content, you will have generations of listeners you will consider P1s.
Sure.
Power 99 FM was like that. And as a result, it is 2020, for crying out loud. 40 years later, there are still people in Philly who vividly remember the brand Yaman Super Mixes, because there was nobody else doing it. It was a big deal at the time. The only person who ever came anywhere close to it was a guy named Shep Pettibone out of New York, doing remixes on 98.7 The Kiss. They used to call them master mixes, which, by the way, where I stole the idea from. And so these Yaman Super Mixes just exponentially grew and became huge, to a point where Tower Records would contact Power 99 FM, go, are you planning to release these? Because we're sick and tired of responding to people and telling them we don't have Yaman Super Mixes in
They
our
would actually
stores.
go into the record store.
They
and
would,
ask.
yes. So, and remember, the whole idea was you have a record in high rotation that does its job for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, and it's beginning to burn out. Just at that burnout threshold, I would do a remix of it, which would then extend its life, number one, making
Sure.
obviously a lot more useful for the PDs, but also the exclusivity of it. So if you have a competing radio station playing Billie Jean by Michael Jackson, Power 99 FM is playing the same song, but it's the remix version that can only be heard on Power 99 FM. So there were strategic advantages to it at the time that I wasn't, I guess,
Sure.
grown up enough to figure out.
This point, you're just, how did you learn to do these mixes in the first place?
Do you remember all those pictures I told you taken in front of cassette decks?
Right.
I realized a couple of times, accidentally hitting the pause button while I was recording, that I can get creative with that. I can start doing things. Remember, this is pre-splice tape and razor blade and cutting blocks. Right.
No Pro Tools or
No.
Right.
I'm using the pause button of a Radio Shack cassette player to manipulate 4 bars or 8 bars or a full verse of a song.
That's unbelievable.
Trying to create a remix. And then, of course, as soon as I set foot inside Power 99 FM, a nice production director there introduced me to splice tapes and razor blades. And that's
at that
when
point,
life changed.
Sure. That's amazing.
Then
Who gave you your first opportunity? Did you come in initially to Power with one of your mega mixes, and just go, hey, take a listen to this? How did that whole process happen?
The name of the man, whom of course I can never forget because of the opportunity he gave me, was Jeff Wyatt. Jeff Wyatt was the program director of Power 99 FM, who was the darling of the industry, who then moved on to LA and
programmed here at KISS.
Kiss.
Incredible
And Power
voiceover talent.
106. Yep, absolutely. And to this day, he's, I don't know about being the darling of the industry, but he's the darling of everyone who knows him. An amazing man, a father, a husband, a wonderful friend. So he was responsible. And sometimes on certain days, I don't know whether to send him a thank you note or anthrax.
He had the foresight, and that must have been to get your first break in Philly, major market without any real radio experiences. What an amazing opportunity that
my favorite reaction always was, I used to do club gigs. So when my parents were yelling at me for not getting compensated for working at Power 99 FM, I used that Yaman Supermix brand to secure gigs at nightclubs in Philly, as well as on behalf of Power 99 FM. So if Power 99 FM is doing a remote, they would run promos. Says, by the way, Yaman the Super Mixer will be doing a live show, at the Granite Run Mall.
Oh.
And my favorite reaction always was audience coming up and say, "You Yaman, get out! You wait! Get out of here!" I love that. It's so awesome. So, urban radio format is therefore and has always been and will always be extremely near and dear to my heart, because that's how I fell in love with radio.
Sure.
And that's, I mean, my number one choice on satellite radio when I get in the car and hit my, press my number one button, it's groove radio, because that's the
reminds
music.
You, yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my God, that's the Power 9 FM playlist from the 80s.
So from Power, you go to Q102?
Right. So from Power, well, there's a lot that happened in between, but from Power, I kind of trying to figure out my way. It's like, where am I going from here? I mean, I start asking the questions to myself that my parents have been asking me all throughout the 80s. Okay, what now? Where do I go from here? While trying to find myself there, another dear friend whom also was working with me at Power 9 FM, a local radio personality in Philly, Frank Cerami. Mm-hmm. Frank is also one of those like you. He's a gem. He's a heart of gold, but he's got the brains to go with that too. So while I'm just going, hey, what do I do now? Another nightclub gig? Frank had the foresight to say, hey, you know what? We should start like a little production company and start helping out local clients and whatever. So he converts his basement into a beautiful studio and buys this software called Pro Tools.
Oh, wow.
And as you well know, I don't care how forward thinking you may be, it's just primal for us to reject change.
Sure.
Right? So I was like fuming. I'm like, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? Where's my razor blade? Where's my splice tape? What the hell? Where's my reel-to-reel machine? Please stop this madness. 3 months later, I was flying on Pro Tools like I've been using it for 10 years. And this was, say like 88, 89,
right.
Something like
really,
that.
Yeah, sure. Really early days. That would take like it would take a half an hour for the computer to boot up too.
when he hit the save button, you would actually like take a vacation with your family for a week and come back and just like, okay, it's not saving.
And say a little prayer that it didn't crash and lose all of your work.
Hey, listen, we used to back everything up that we did on Pro Tools to either reel-to-reel or a few years later, remember DAT?
Sure.
DAT machines?
Yeah.
So everything had to be backed up to DAT. Yeah. So that was the big conversion. That was the big turning point, really, in my creative career and production career. And note that I'm saying creative career because, frankly, that technology, for most, enhanced and improved people's creative careers. It put it on steroids because suddenly you could do what you were thinking and what you were hearing, you could do it within 10 minutes.
Right.
Versus, 10 hours in the old days.
All of a sudden, like when Galileo finally had a telescope to be able to look through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was a huge transition and a huge evolution. And that was it. From there, we did that, studio together. Then we took it out of the basement. Actually went to Center City, Philadelphia, and Frank successfully opened a great business. I continued to work with him. Frank still does it to this day.
Oh, no kidding. So when you were working with Frank, were you guys now working on a commercial production, or are you still...
Local
how did that?
Production.
So when did you realize, because you're doing the Yaman mega mixes and you're on more of the programming side, when did you realize you had an interest in client relations and commercial production and really being a creative director?
That's a very intelligent question, but at the time I really didn't even think of that. I mean, if I had, I'd just try to give you an answer right now that's as intelligent as your question. Right. At the time, it was like, great, man, something else to do that's kind of related to the field, and actually I'm making money for it. Frank is paying me.
So you weren't got it. So you weren't getting paid still for the mega mixes. That was something.
Super mixes, right?
Sorry, the super mixes.
Yeah. No. They were. I mean, at that point, Power 99 FM was pretty much saying, "Hey, dude, We gave you the name.
Right.
And look, now you're securing all these club gigs.
Clubs,
You're welcome. By the way, come in and help us with some dubs next Sunday. So that was the arrangement. But with this thing with Frank, I was really getting excited about it because I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm elevating myself from DJ boots and sticky floors and liquor and working till 2-3 in the morning versus, hey, put on a clean shirt and show up at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. you have a client coming in. Oh wow. Pretty
and
cool.
were you working, you were obviously doing the production part of it, but were you also helping with the copywriting and actually create it?
Yes, I was a creative director for Frank's company. So I was developing copy, concept, and production, right.
Further blows my mind because you obviously, your native language is Turkish. And so you are a few years in and now you've learned English so well that you're able to use it for creative, which is not, I got to imagine, not easy to do. It's my first language and I can't do it.
I appreciate you saying that. I don't publicly tell people this secret, but it was Sesame Street. Every morning, I'd watch Sesame Street, and then at night, I would watch Nightline with Ted Koppel.
Are you serious?
So, somewhat. I mean, to be honest with you, if when you bring a foreigner into this country, you can put him through a course for 3 weeks that teaches English, or park him in front of the television set for 3 weeks. Chances are they're going to end up learning more from that audio-visual teaching than they do from the academic approach to teaching somebody the language. And honestly, TV was very helpful, both radio and TV.
That's amazing.
Number one. Number two, that you know how annoying former smokers can be, or former, because when you're in their presence and you're puffing away or you're drinking away, they may not say that to you, but there's always that sense of judgment. So because they've worked so hard to achieve something that is pretty incredible and very impressive. So they have to work 3-4 times harder than you to get to that point. Well, remember Jeff Wyatt?
Sure.
I used to beg him, plead with him to put me on the air. And he used to go, yeah, that's cute, Yaman, but you have an accent, dude.
Right.
That doesn't work. Especially in the 80s, like having an accent on the air. Hispanic accent would have been okay, but what the hell is that? Turkish accent? What is that?
Yeah.
So I found myself having to master the English language much harder and probe much deeper and become one of those annoying, judging people who trying to just embrace the command of the language. And I'm the guy who picks on people right now and go, hey man, that apostrophe doesn't belong there. You know that, right?
That's really
like,
it's incredible.
Up,
that's so impressive. Do you think that your acting background helped with that to some degree? Because you don't sense much of an accent.
Well, I think with the acting background has helped with the ability to BS. which certainly comes very handy from time to time. But no, I mean, honestly, there are a couple of things that I've done in my life that I feel pretty close to right. Coming to America was one. Marrying my incredible wife was one. Having the nerve to quit my cushiony job at iHeart in 2007 and start Yamanair was one. And I think in retrospect, really adapting in ways that I would have never imagined, which includes mastering the command of the language and then mastering the art of how to use that language to persuade people effectively, which is what advertising is all about. I think I can look back at that and not necessarily be overly humble about it. I am proud of it because I really put in the sweat equity. I read a lot, listened a lot, absorbed a lot, and ultimately I think you got to have some natural gift to simulate, imitate, and then execute. And that's what ended up happening with that.
You certainly have.
I mean, honest to God, sometimes I give myself reality checks when I get off stage at some, major radio event, getting up there talking to hundreds of people about effective creative and execution and proper copy. And then, I get up and I go, what the hell? Didn't you just get off the boat in 1980? And now you're here preaching to people? What the hell are you thinking about? But that's, rather than self-judging, I think that's more of a gratefulness opportunity for me to say, thank you, God. Thank you for, giving me this gift, because I got nothing else.
It's certainly an American dream, and I want to get more into the company here in a few minutes, but you've absolutely just, seized that opportunity, and I have no doubt that you were given some God-given gifts, but you also just have, worked your tail off, and that persistence of constantly going to Jeff and getting him to listen to your mixes and, begging him to put you on air. And I've got so much respect for that. And so in a lot of ways, you've made your own destiny. So you're with Frank and you're doing commercial production, and now this is really your first foray into what would eventually become Yamanair. And then from there is when you go to Q102?
Yes, 1989, Frank was asked to accept the position of music director at Q102, which was a big top secret. Frank is at an undisclosed location somewhere, in New Jersey, carting up music. Yeah. I said carting up music. And
degaussing tapes.
Degaussing tapes. And cleaning heads with a Q-tip soaked in alcohol, gently. So meanwhile, I'm in LA, living in Santa Monica, partying my head off, and still nudging Jeff Wyatt because I kind of, I'm like the stalker. So I kind of chase him to LA and go, hey, can I get a gig at Power 106? Is there anything I can do? Maybe we can start a Yaman Super Mix here. And he's like swatting me away, And so Frank calls me and says, hey, you want to come back to Philly and help us out with, whatever. I'm like, well, I ain't going anywhere in LA, so why not? So hop on a plane, get back to Philly.
So let's back up really quick, and I apologize for leaving that out. Tell us about coming out to L.A.
Well, coming out to L.A. was really with that intention. Hey, if I maybe get a part-time gig somewhere, whatever, be closer to Jeff. Jeff is my man. He's my mentor. I love him.
See.
Maybe he'll give me the time of the day. I was dead wrong.
When you made when you made that move, were your parents like, oh, my God? Or were they pretty supportive?
At that point, I think they had pretty much given up. They're like, this guy's out of control. He's gone.
We should have never have left Turkey.
So suddenly I find myself in a place where I lost the musical chairs game. My parents have given up on me, and Jeff Wyatt is ignoring me and avoiding me like the coronavirus. So I'm like, okay, that's it. Now what do I do? And then this phone call comes from Frank.
Hey, and he's
carting up music in some undisclosed location for this new radio station. Oh, really? Who is it? Have you ever heard of Mark Driscoll? Nope. Have you ever heard of Elvis Duran? Nope. All right, well, you will. See you when you get back. And that was it. 1989, we launch Q102. What the hell? Here's another hit. So, comes Mark Driscoll, comes Elvis Duran.
Tell me about that. Obviously, just superstars in the business.
Goosebumps. Goosebumps. I remember I was board hopping the first 2-3 weeks. There were no air personalities. Remember that? When we flip a format, you just music wall to wall. I remember playing Milli Vanilli, girl, it's true.
Yeah.
Ooh, ooh. So
it.
Every time that song comes on today, I still get goosebumps that how music can do that so powerfully. Instantly, I'm back in that studio in Ballackinwood the first couple of weeks of Q102. Incredible. Unbeknownst to me that it would one day become a legendary station like Power 99 did.
Unreal. And so it's just the electricity is just running through the building at that point?
Unbelievable. And this Mark Driscoll, as far as we're concerned, that's not a man. that is God walking the hallways. You know, we are in the presence of a supreme being. Huge. And then this guy, talk about creative mentors, creative power, a guy named David J., who's doing the imaging for Q102, whom Mark Driscoll basically brought him because, you know, him and Mark Driscoll were working together.
From Florida, right? They were down in...
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
And I'm watching David J. on the 8-track, making his magic and putting these imaging pieces together. And I'm like, my jaw is on the... I am just in awe watching him. Going, is this really happening? Am I really part of this? Huge. So there is a massive influence in my creative rhetoric, generally speaking, whether it's for imaging or commercial production, to this day, that I picked up during that powerful period that has become permanently embedded in my heart and my mind.
I mean, to be mentored by Jeff Wyatt, Mark Driscoll, David J., and Elvis Duran, I mean, what
radio gods.
Foundation.
These are radio gods, truly.
Yeah, truly. Absolutely. So from there, fill me in a little bit how things kind of grow. You're at that point now have commercial production experience, imaging experience, mixing experience. I mean, you really have all aspects of production.
Perfect timing for me to stop practicing law. because by then you realize, oh my God, this is one of the most unstable industries I could have possibly been attached to. I got to get out. So, all right. So the Q102 thing lasts until I think I'm there like 92-ish or so. And right about that time is when Frank really picks up. That's when the move to Center City begins to happen, and the production is now accelerating. He's picking up more clients, and so this thing is now beginning to, you know, the ground is galvanized enough, and we spread enough fires that it's beginning to catch on right now, and it's fun. 95. I don't know if this happened to you yet. If it hasn't, it will. There comes a time in your life when you just pause everything and you begin to question everything. I mean, everything. Who the hell you are? Why'd you get here? Why did I move? What did I do? Where do I go from here? What have I done? You know, who am I? All those stupid questions that, you know, usually end as soon as you get a box of edibles. But we didn't have that. This is 95, so I didn't have that. So I'm lost. I suddenly am questioning everything, and I'm no longer convinced that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, except I have no idea what the hell I'm supposed to be doing. So I begin to entertain the thought of re-engaging what I used to do when I was a kid. Acting.
No kidding.
So I decide it's time for me to permanently get out of radio, pack it up. I'm moving to LA, and I'm going to become one of those idiots waiting tables until, you know, somebody discovers me. Pipe dream, no reality check, 100% emotional, no logic, no rationale, nothing. Jump on a plane, go to LA. Guess whose house I'm staying at?
Jeff Wyatt.
You guessed it, of course. And we have a mutual friend. His name is Chris Leary. Learjet, they used to call him, another radio guy from the Power 9 days. So I go to visit him. He lives in Northridge. And he opens the door. And he goes, man, what a weird day. I go, what's up? He goes, I have 2 friends from my childhood days or growing up days in Philly visiting me on the same day. I go, why? Who else? And he goes, here. We walk in the kitchen. It's this gorgeous girl tossing salad and cutting a loaf of bread in the kitchen. And Chris goes, Yaman, Elizabeth, Yaman. And then he turns to me, he goes, whatever you do, do not hit on her. She's our families know each other, okay? She's just visiting. She just came out of a broken up engagement. She's really vulnerable. She's on the rebound. Yeah, just be nice, okay? Naturally, I immediately start hitting on her within a matter of like minutes after that conversation. And that was April 97, Christmas 98. By Christmas 98, we were married.
I love that story. You've told me that once before.
Found my soulmate. Found my soulmate in Northridge, California. Go figure.
At Learjet's house. And
that's right.
She didn't throw any kitchen knives at you or anything.
No, not till about 3-4 years into the marriage. So that whole, I'm lost, I need to re-engage my acting career crap obviously came to a screeching halt when I realized that what I was truly missing was my soulmate. So we settled, and then lo and behold, I get a call from a guy named Glenn Kalina at Q102. He goes, hey, you have an opening. We can use a good, talented production director. Are you in? I'm like, dude, I love you, and I would love to come back to radio, but just got married. Things, are stable. I think I'm okay. About an hour after that conversation, naturally, I was on my way to Q102 to see what my studio is going to look like and where my office was going to be, and sign the paperwork to start on Monday. Look, anybody who's listening to this who passionately is engaged in radio and loves radio, to them, it's like, yep, no brainer. I saw that coming. That's inevitable.
It's in our blood. There's just something about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
jumped to the Q102. Continued that until the management change happened.
And now you're at Q102 as a full-on production director.
Yeah, full-on creative services director. Yes.
See, that's very interesting to me that you've had both sides, both the programming, creative programming side and the creative production side, because generally, as you know, there's sometimes unfortunately, this wall that's down the middle of a radio stations, and programming's on one side and sales is on the other side. And you really bridge that divide and were able to bring in, I think, both crafts, and it's probably a large reason for your creative success.
That is an excellent point you make, which, by the way, is really the final chapter of this story that brings us to this day. Because what you just said, that gap, that bridge, was where the opportunity lied, except no one had touched it until about 2004 while I was at iHeart. So the Q102 thing comes to a screeching halt while I'm in my own euphoria saying, oh my God, look at this. It's 1999. I am doing today what I was drooling over watching David J. do 10 years ago. Right. And here I am now doing it. How cool is this? This is fantastic, blah, blah, blah. And management change happens, and I think anyone who's in the industry
all been
knows,
there, yeah.
yeah, what happens next. So I find myself on my butt on the street and just got married, right? And I'm going, all right, that's it. I am so done with radio. I mean, done. Okay, firmly done. Maybe I might go back if somebody. No. I'm done, and I meant it. Immediately spent whatever money I had in my savings on buying a computer, Pro Tools, microphone, blah blah. Set it up in my basement, and I started this weird name at the time, but people said you should do that because you already have a name in Philadelphia, so you might as well capitalize on it. So I called it Yaman Air. One word. Yeah, don't go on the air, go on Yamanair. Ha ha ha. Cute. And start that. I immediately pick up some accounts, mostly are nightclubs, naturally, because I'm already DJing in nightclubs in Philadelphia at a place called Egypt on the Waterfront, Aztec Club, that huge strip called Delaware Avenue in Philadelphia where the clubs are exploding. That's the big scene. And that's it. 2001, May 2001, we have a baby. I'm like, oh my God, okay, I can see how this is all going to work out. We're in the cute little suburbs of Philadelphia. I got my little basement production going.
Sure.
My wife is working. This is all good. Radio, distant memory, and we move on. The end, credits are rolling, and then everything stops. Credits begin to reverse. The camera pans to the left to the phone. The phone is ringing, and it's damn Jeff Wyatt on the phone calling from Washington, D.C. And he goes, hey, buddy of mine, Bennett Zier and I are launching a new CHR in Washington, D.C. called Hot 99.5. How would you like to? No! Yes.
That drug dealer calling you after you've just given it up. You know?
Oh, my God. It's like Groundhog Day. So, of course, the answer was a flat-out no, followed by an immediate listing of our property, packing up the suitcases, putting our baby in one of the suitcases, and heading down to D.C. And that was 2001. We launched Hot 99.5.
And right around 9/11, correct?
Oh, yeah. It was literally a month before 9/11 is when Clear Channel put us up in D.C. And then that happened, followed by the anthrax, followed by the D.C. sniper. So I'm going, yeah, these are all good omens. I'm so glad we made this relocation. Things are working out great. Maybe a mountain will erupt. We'll have a volcano or something soon. And it'll all be over. And then I'd never have to worry about getting another phone call for a new video gig.
Now you're down there. Sibel's only a couple years old. Did you have second thoughts about going back to Philly?
No. At that point, first of all, I dove head first into this whole Hot 995 project. And then this is where today's story begins. Because there we created an arrangement where I would be imaging Hot 995 while helping out the sellers on their key accounts for a couple of commission points. So the employment agreement they cut with me was, this is, what you get paid for imaging us, but if your creative help secure business for sellers, then you get like a point or two commission.
Really, in retrospect, that was a brilliant idea.
Yes, it was. I didn't know either, but I got very excited because I saw the potential of how that would work. And that's when the bridge you were talking about, that's when I started that bridge becoming a critical bridge, because we've always had imaging people, they're the low handicap golfers.
Sure.
And then you had the production directors, they're high handicap golfers.
Yeah.
They didn't really play together.
You're absolutely right.
And the opportunity for the imaging people to use that incredible talent, that rhythmic production perspective that they have, where things move and flow beautifully and succinctly, messages are executed, and it matches the format beautifully because it's what we call the stationality. Imagine those guys sharing their toys with the production department and begin to help each other instead of being this, church and state separation.
Right.
And boy, did it begin to pay off very quickly, very handsomely. So, go ahead.
Was that Jeff Wyatt's idea?
That was an offspring of a discussion that I had with Jeff Wyatt, that if I'm going to make this kind of a major relocation for the first time in my life, really with my family, blah, blah, that there'd have to be some incentive in it that enables me to not be 100% rely on programming.
Yeah.
Because I had already learned after almost 20 years how volatile that can be. Ratings dropped, the management changed, the new PD doesn't like the way you wear your hair, whatever. So I said, if I have some connection to the sales department, that gives me stability. Even in the programming goes to poop, I may still, rely on that. So that was my thinking at the time, kind of a primitive. But
I think way ahead of its time, and just
brilliant.
Wouldn't expect anything less. No, brilliant model. So from there, how does CSG come to be?
So when this arrangement began to, of course, we were tracking it. Hey, in April we secured this much money, in May this. So I'm tracking the hell out of it on a spreadsheet. And at the time, Clear Channel had a centralized kind of a voice share,
imaging
share thing, put together by a great guy, a very smart guy named Jim Cook. And Jim had already put this up, and it was working. And all of us, imaging people, I was working with Eric Chase, Dave Campbell, some other guys, and like whenever there was a collective contest, anything that's national that goes to all Clear Channel properties, we were sort of the team that assembled it together.
I see.
So we'd contribute, we'd create the shells, put them up there. Sound familiar?
Very familiar. Very familiar. And again, way ahead of its time. I mean, for 15 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, this is 2002.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Okay, 2002, 2003. So by 2004, I start wondering, very quietly, haven't discussed it with anyone, if there is a site like this for imaging, why not create a site for commercial production that does exactly the same thing, but instead of production people being its audience, it's the sellers. So sellers go up and grab fully produced commercials where the front end is somewhat generic, but category specific, and they can customize the back end. So I start discussing this with Jim Cook, and Jim says, there is definitely something there. Well, let me take the lead, because he already had a pretty good relationship with John Hogan, and John had already seen the success that the imaging site had. So he says, ride my coattails, and we may be able to take it somewhere. And he kept his promise. He did.
Amazing.
So he took that idea, raw idea, uncooked idea that I shared with him, made it pretty, and got the approval from John Hogan for a budget to roll out CSG, the Creative Services Group, which we effectively did in 2004. And I don't know if you remember, but there were a lot of initiatives.
Oh yeah, no, I remember. I remember well because I was at the company at that point here in LA, and absolutely remember that. Yeah,
this one, I mean, it really blew everybody away. It made a lot of money, and that to me was a huge leap. It was a turning point.
Well, no, gigantic, because now you were local, major market, but to graduate into this huge national footprint, and now you're dealing with people from across New York, LA, for Chicago, I mean, across the country. Huge. What was that overnight? What did that feel like?
Like a dream, because suddenly I went from being in the production room to being in boardrooms and hanging out with the executives and having breakfast with the Mays and jumping on planes to do presentations and meet clients. And I'm like, is this really happening? This is huge. And I was just besides myself. It was, I was given a title. I'm like, oh my God, I have a title. What's the title again? Executive Creative Coordinator. Oh, wow. Huge.
Amazing. You've gone from literally with your little Radio Shack mixer making your Yaman super mixes.
Yaman super mixes to that. So incredible. And then, so that was 2005, 2006, 2007, something unexpected happened. April 2nd, 2007, we had our second baby, and that's not the unexpected part. We were expecting that for 9 months. The unexpected part was when I was holding this baby, my son,
Liam,
and I looked at him, Liam, and suddenly I got that same feeling that most daddies do when they hold their baby, that they think they're Superman and they can pretty much conquer the world and change everything for good, and they're Superman. So somehow, maybe I just dropped acid, I'm not sure. But somehow I turn around and I tell John Hogan and Jim Cook and all these guys that, thank you, love you. This was absolutely a massive opportunity, but with all due respect, I'm gonna bail out and I'm gonna start my own gig. And just so you know, my own gig is going to use a very similar model as CSG, so I need your blessing. And so
that, And I just want to talk for a moment longer about that decision, because that takes tremendous guts. I'm sure you're making a good living. You've got 2 young children. Did anyone say to you, did Elizabeth go, are you out of your mind? Why are you giving this up?
She did.
And
she did at first, but then she was very supportive. And you're absolutely right. I mean, other than coming to America in 1980 and saying, I do at my wedding, this was by far the third scariest thing I had ever done in my life.
And it was just looking at Liam, and you had that epiphany, let's do this.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's
and,
incredible.
This may go against the rhetoric, all that narrative that we've heard about, Clear Channel in the past, blah, blah, blah. But I have to tell you, they were incredibly human about it, 100% supportive. And it was a very amicable separation. And I'm to this day very grateful for that, because I learned a lot. And I'm thankful to everyone that I work with, starting with Jim Cook, who was a friend and a mentor that helped me realize my dream and supported what I wanted to do, which was an initiative that ended up paying off for everyone. So took a month off, just loving my baby. And then I tossed the baby to Elizabeth and then dove into my basement and started creating this little primitive thing, working with a buddy of mine who at the time was handling IT at Clear Channel. And we designed this kind of a primitive thing called Cashback Creative.
I was just thinking, why Jim Cook and everyone was so nice? Because they thought you were probably out of your freaking mind. And they're like, there's no way.
That's a great idea.
It's a great idea. Yeah. He'll be back in a few months.
Yeah, that's right. And the door is closing. I'm getting into my car. And it's like, what is that roar of laughter? I don't understand.
So now you're building this.
Yeah, I'm building this. And just about I'm building. My mission is, let me build this. If I build it, they'll buy it. Well, I don't know. But right as I am, locked in the basement 12, 13, 14 hours a day, reaching out to some producers that I know and say, hey, man, can you create a spot, but make it like generic in the front and then send me the shell? What's this about? I'll tell you later. So I'm trying to populate some categories so that there's something to show there.
It's a lot of work.
Right about that time, it's announced in the trades that Dan Mason has been appointed as the new CEO of CBS Radio.
Okay.
And I'm like, Dan Mason, why do I know this? And then, I started looking him up and realized this guy doesn't come from sales.
Right.
He actually comes from programming side. I'm like, ooh, wait a second. A radio guy in the CEO position of CBS Radio? Oh, I think I got myself a new Jeff Wyatt. Good. The stalker strikes it. The Turkish stalker strikes again. So,
Jeff Wyatt should have sent him the fly swatter.
That's right. There should have been pictures of me. It's like, avoid this guy. Don't let him in the building. So I start going after him. Very gracious guy, class act, totally. He says, "Look, I think my right-hand person should see this. His name is Scott Herman. Show it to him. Let's see what happens." I'm going, Scott Herman. I know who it is. Well, I hope he's a nice guy. So I jump on a train from D.C., go up to New York. Going to the CBS corporate offices, pop up on my laptop, and I'm showing to Scott Herman, and he's got a poker face, kind of looking at it, and I'm saying to myself, oh, man, this is going to be a poop show.
Do you understand, though, the magnitude of this pitch at this point? Are you aware of how big?
I mean, I'm sweating, I got sweaty palms, and I'm, nervous, but I'm trying to conceal it, trying to, resurrect my childhood acting skills and trying to appear calm. But no, I'm not. What I am doing is I'm leveraging the fact that, hey, you may have heard of me. I'm Yaman Coskun. I kind of co-authored CSG for iHeart. And they're probably going, who? What? What did you do for Clear Channel? Not iHeart, Clear Channel? So I'm trying to push that in the forefront to establish some credibility so that they understand that I'm not just some Tom, Dick, and Harry coming in there. It's like, hey, I have this kind of a cool production service. So one of the things that I was really emphasizing with Scott is that this is not a production service. This is a sales development tool. This is designed to acquire new business. And that's when his poker face started to change into a very engaged face. I literally watched Scott's eyes wide open, looking at it. And I swear to you, to this day, whether he admits it or not, I almost felt like he was actually holding back. Like if he wasn't holding back, he was just going to turn to me and go, dude, give me a high five. This is great. So he goes, look, take it and roll it out in DC and Baltimore. Let's see what happens. We'll check it out in 60 days.
Wow.
I go, thank you very much. I'm shaking his hand, and I just couldn't hold back. You know me. This is why this whole social distancing is killing me, because I'm a hugger. I love people, and I hug people. So I give him a hug. And I see him kind of like taken back a little bit, but I also noticed that he's one of us. Right. He's a cool dude. Yeah, so he kind of gets it, and he's kind of laughing. He goes, I'm glad you're excited. We're excited too. Let's see how it goes. Nicest guy on the face of the earth. And I'm going, oh, look at my. I don't think anybody on the train on the way back to DC even came anywhere near me because they thought I was a complete nut job because I was laughing. All the way, I literally laughed for 2.5 hours all the way back to DC. This huge grin on my face. I'm like, I cannot believe I just got the okay to roll this out in DC and Baltimore. And we did. That was October, November, December. Fourth quarter, we rolled it out DC and Baltimore. Lo and behold, they made crap load of money. And come 2008, Scott clears it to roll it out to all CBS markets, all 29 of them.
Unbelievable, man. Congratulations. And I mean, just,
oh my God.
What were you able to, when that happened, landing that, going back to Scott, and I think the analogy there, you and I, both golfers, we're never going to win the Masters or the US Open, but when us being cut from the same cloth, winning that deal, when Scott gave you that green light to try it in DC and Baltimore, would be the equivalent of us winning a major. Just that feeling, that elation, that excitement. There is nothing else quite like it. So,
well said. And it's funny that I don't know if you've ever used that line before you started Benztown. You know what you just said? Winning a deal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you probably talked about, winning better ratings. You talked about ratings. You talked about grooming your personalities and spending one-on-one with them. But you probably never said winning a deal until you became a CEO of an incredible company like the one you run now. I never looked at it as winning a deal. I looked at it as, at all the good things that happened to me in my life always had one common theme, that there was always one person in the picture who said, okay, who said yes, who supported, who was somehow positive. My brother, at age 6, helped me get my headshots done and get my bio done to push it to the movie studios with my dad's encouragement and his connections. My brother was responsible, really, for me to get into that field as a kid.
Your champion.
1982, Jeff Wyatt. Early 90s, Frank Cerami. Late 90s, Jeff Wyatt again. Too early, 2007, Scott Herman.
Yeah.
So it wasn't winning a deal. It was just recognizing that when your heart is in the right place and your motives are pure, someone somehow will show up and say, all right, Chach, we'll give it a shot.
That's really good advice. I think we are so, and I can speak to myself at least, and obviously what you just said, grateful of the people that have championed us throughout our careers, because there's no doubt that we wouldn't be where we are today if it weren't.
We can't. There's no one. I mean, Jesus had to have 12 disciples.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, from there. I mean, I'm going way back. If I had a personal relationship with some of the cavemen, I'd probably use those as examples too. But at every achievement, there is either a person or a group of people who get behind you, who make you feel like there is validity to what you're doing or what you're saying, and we're willing to support it. It makes sense. I mean, granted, obviously, what you propose or what you try to do, has to have some aspect of it that people can have a buy-in on. But, then again, you watch that incredible TV spot that, as you know, I use in my presentations all the time about Apple TV and famous, they're willified, the crazy, the ones who are crazy enough to think, So sometimes you have nobody. But if you're that strong, and you can go at it on your own, like Steve Jobs did, and kick butt, God bless him. Yeah. I'm not that strong. I needed somebody in my life at every aspect of my life, and I was lucky enough to have one. And now, by the way, today it's you. You're my new victim.
Were you able to call your dad and your mom and celebrate when you landed the CBS agreement?
Yes. 100%.
And at that point,
100%.
Did they fully understand that their son had made it?
They had no clue, but they knew something good was going on. They could tell, when you, I mean, this, when you love somebody so much, so unconditionally, sometimes you really don't give a damn about the deep details.
Right.
You're just happy that they're happy. It's like looking at your child. He looks happy, makes me happy. Yeah. He probably just passed gas, and that's why he looks so comfortable. But it's okay. He looks happy, I'm happy. So, and the last of the story really is, if you want to look at these heroes that I just mentioned to you, from my brother, to Jeff Wyatt, to Scott Herman, 2017, I think my last hero showed up. I don't think, I'm pushing 60 right now, so I don't think I'm going to have more because I think, the next ambition for me would be to, have like Tiger Woods as my buddy. But
by the way, on the golf course, Yaman is known as the Turkish Tiger. That is his, his golf
and by
name,
the way,
that
has nothing to do with my performance.
Yeah.
But my last hero was a guy named Peter Kosann, who's the founder and CEO of Compass Media Networks. And he's the one who played that role in my life in 2017 when they were already repping one of our services. And he sensed that I'm always on the ideological side of this business, but not on the logistical side. I'm even reluctant to call it a business. To me, this is a passion. And I was lucky enough to figure out how to make a living on it. But I love the creative part. I love the engagement with the humanity. And I hate everything that comes with having to run the business aspect of it. The HR, the taxes, the blah, 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 all that. So he sensed that. And he bought Yamanair in 2017. So we were acquired by Compass Media Networks, and it was a match made in heaven. There are, I mean, you think about a dream acquisition, a dream company that believes in loving people, committing people, being transparent with people, and supporting them genuinely without any ulterior motive. That's Compass Media.
They are an amazing organization, and my point about Yaman being the most creative person I know, I think Peter, I regard him as, I don't know if there's anyone that knows the business any better than Peter. He is so incredibly intelligent, and he's been a confidant and a friend of mine for many years, and actually how we met, how Yaman and I met, but just a great human being. Hiram, Paul Gregory, just a great team that are over there at Compass.
Yeah, and that's the, when you think about business, business, whether it's radio business, medical business, whatever. When you have a good human at the top, it just trickles down, and it becomes the culture of that business. If you have a schmuck at the top, then the operation also reflects that in its culture. So it's, I wish we had more Jeff Wyatts. I wish we had more Scott Hermans. I wish we had more Peter Kosanns. And there's a ton of them. I mean, our industry is blessed with a lot of people who are in love with radio, passionate about it, and stand behind it. That's why radio is as powerful as it is. It's not just the power of audio, it's the power of people behind the audio.
Yeah.
That makes radio so incredible. So, but we're very lucky. We're very lucky to know these gems.
And I would say, especially given the last handful of months and how tumultuous they've been, leadership and strong leadership has never been more important. It's great leaders are made in times of crisis. Abraham Lincoln, Winston Churchill, and I am really impressed, and I've watched very closely about how you have done it. And you and I have obviously, have several phone calls about it, and just trying to stay positive, but also authentic and real with our teams. I've been privy to Peter and some of his communications, and just what a phenomenal job he has done. And my question really for you as we're wrapping this up, what is some of your advice for people listening to this on how to lead and get through this time?
Excellent question, and frankly, that's exactly what's on my heart, to ensure that we wrap it up with that conversation and with that tone. I think leadership, whether it's in government, in business, private sector, or at home, are all the same. You had to hear, with everything that's going on in the news, about experts, family experts, psychologists saying, parents, please do the best you can to conceal your stress, your anger, your frustrations in front of your kids. If you need to vent and get it off your system, either do it with each other privately and protect the kids, do it outside, but don't do it in front of kids, because just like COVID-19, so is anger and stress and negative emotions are also extremely contagious. So if the parents are constantly arguing, expressing their frustrations, what a dark place we're in, damn it, blah, 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 all that immediately is passed down to the kids, and you're ruining their attitudes, their mental health, and their ability to cope with what's going on. Take it out of the family unit now and carry it to a small business. Same damn thing. Take it to a mid-sized business. Same damn thing. Take it to a massive Fortune 500 company. Same damn thing. Take it to government. Same damn thing. Leadership, anybody can be a leader. Anybody can call themselves a leader. And you can be, by the way, a brilliant leader, coming up with brilliant ideas and brilliant businesses and make crap load of money. But true leadership skills come in when there's a poop storm. Mm-hmm. How big is your umbrella? How wide is it? How well are you protecting yourself and the people that you're responsible for? So I will close with this. We're spending way too much time at a time like this, when we are smack in the middle of a war, an information war, where it's almost impossible to hear the truth because there's so much noise. We're spending way too much time on figuring out where the light at the end of the tunnel is. We keep talking about the light at the end of the tunnel. Where is the light? Is it coming any minute now? Is it around the corner? How fast can I get to that light? We've got to get out of this tunnel. What we need to do is just shut up, pause, and figure out how to manage the tunnel itself. How do we adapt to the tunnel that we're in? Because I don't know where the light is yet. Is this over? Is it phase 2? Hey, let's all celebrate. Business is back. A month later. I'm sorry. The second wave just came in. We're going through another lockdown. Oh, are you really prepared for that? If you ask my opinion, at this point, no, we're not. We're so vulnerable. We're so pissed off, rightfully so, that our liberties have been taken away from us, our money has been taken away from us, our employees have been taken away from us. I don't give a damn. I am just getting out there, right? That's the general attitude, whether we say it or not. What we need to do is pause, take a deep breath, and master the art of living in the tunnel, whether it's for another month or another 6 months. Because if we can do that, imagine how awesome we are going to be when we get to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Phenomenal advice. I'm so grateful for you taking the time, man. And those last sentiments were just incredible. And I agree with you. I never thought about it that way, but I think you're absolutely right. We've got to get acclimated to being in that tunnel and gain strength while being in it, and then we're able to emerge.
Exactly.
Yaman, thank you. You are a true friend, an inspiration, and just it's been a pure pleasure taking this time, and thank you for sharing your story.
I'm honored to do this with you. Thank you, Chachi. You know I love you.
Love you too, buddy.